Hello and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be building an absolutely huge mountain in Structureless Superflat Survival. I started building this mountain back in about mid-February, so based on when this video releases, you'll know how long it actually took me to complete. And you're probably wondering how I got all these items in my hotbar and built all these things in a superflat world with no structures, so now I'm going to explain that to you real quick. A structureless superflat world is pretty barren, except for one thing which makes this all possible, a bonus chest containing apples and wood. These two things build the foundation of getting all the possible items in superflat. Zombies have about a 1 in 120 chance of dropping iron, so you'll need to kill about 1,200 of them on average to get the 10 iron required for the next step. After you finish that absolutely grueling task, which to remind you you'll have to do with only wood tools, you're going to have to make a cauldron and a bucket, which will get you your first water source in your world, which is very important for the next part. Hopefully this is helping you better understand the absolute monstrosity of a process that even getting to a playable stage of Structureless Superflat is. But the next step is to drown a bunch of zombies and kill them and pray that you get copper, which won't take too long. This is much easier than the iron stage. Then once you obtain 3 copper ingots, you can make a lightning rod to throw in a little pig pen from pigs which you've bred hopefully with the carrots and potatoes that you've obtained from zombies and then grown. Then once a thunderstorm rolls around and strikes your piggies, you'll be able to obtain gold, which you'll need to craft a golden apple. Then after all this, you're going to need to get really close to a witch and a zombie villager and pray that the witch throws a weakness potion so you can cure that zombie villager with your newfound golden apple. Then after all this, you'll have access to villagers and the apples that farmers sell, which you'll be able to use to cure more villagers, or you can just breed your villagers to get plenty more. Villagers are very important to my Structureless Superflat world and are the key to obtaining almost every item I have, so hopefully you understand a little bit better how I got them and how I got to this point. And it can be pretty confusing to keep track of all the things you can and can't get in a Structureless Superflat world, so let me just go over some of the important things real quick. You can obtain all diamond tools and weapons from the toolsmith and weaponsmith villagers, and they come pre-enchanted, which is very helpful for resource gathering and killing mobs. Also, you can get all diamond armor from the armorer villagers, so you can get fully kitted out. And since you can't obtain the diamonds or obsidian to craft an enchanting table, you'll have to use librarian villagers to obtain all the different enchanted books and kill iron golems so you can make an anvil. Then combine your tools and the diamonds together so you can get the most overpowered tools. And with all the power from villagers and the wandering trader, you'd think you'd be able to obtain everything. You can get every sapling in the game, you can get moss and all the blocks that come with it, and you can get many other things from the wandering trader that are helpful for decorating and building alike. And despite the crazy amount of things that are possible to obtain, there's one thing that's out of reach of any person who plays Structureless Superflat Survival: stone. There's a common misconception that you can buy lava off villagers, but sadly it's just not possible and they'll only accept it as a trade. Similarly, stonemasons will accept stone, but you can't buy any off of them except for chiseled stone, which you can't craft into anything else. So yes, I'm playing in a world type where I have fully enchanted diamond tools, but this is the closest I'll ever get to a block of stone. But enough of hearing me talk on and on about how Superflat works and how I got this magical spoon in my character's hand. It's time to get to what you really clicked on this video for: watching me build a mountain in Structureless Superflat Survival. And to do that, we're going to need to gather a lot of resources. Now, before I start actually building the mountain, I want to show you guys the build palette that I'm using, which is pretty simple, only consisting of 4 blocks really, which is dirt, which I can get basically anywhere, brown mushroom, which I get from growing brown mushrooms, moss, which I can bone meal on the 3 layers of dirt and just get plenty of that, and then packed mud, which I use wheat and water bottles on dirt and get plenty of that. Now let's get to building. Now you may have noticed that at the start of the video, I said I started this build in February. That was February of 2023. I gave up on this build after getting this far 9 months ago. I did not think there was a single way I was going to finish this entire build and build the whole mountain, because a fourth of the way through, I was already exhausted and it had taken me so long to build this much. It was a facade of a mountain standing on these stilts. But now, I'm here, and I'm back to finish this mountain the way it was meant to be. I'm gonna do it. I finally did it. After months of effort and many hours of work, I finally finished the mountain. And it looks better than I could have ever imagined. This has got to be one of my favorite angles to look at the build, and also quite conveniently probably the angle I'll be seeing the most. And I really just love the waterfall coming down with the contrast of the blue colors on the mountain. I think it really just looks great, along with being able to see the full mountain and the little house on top and the peak and everything. And now let me hop into a copy of my world so I can use spectator mode and creative mode to get a closer look at a lot of things. One thing I want to look at first, which I think may be confusing a lot of you, is the stony sections, because if you remember earlier, I don't have stone. So the darker part of these stone areas was actually made of dark wool and mud, and the lighter made out of clay and light gray wool and coral, and altogether it looks quite a lot like stone, which I really like as a replacement to the missing stone blocks. And I really just love all these stone areas as focus sections, like this little cave here, or as a much larger scale, the whole peak of the mountain with the darker to lighter, and even the snowy section at the top, which was actually just made out of white wool and mushroom stems. And then if we go a little closer down, you'll actually see these custom trees I made, which I really liked building these because it was a little bit of a break from just the pure land building. And while I'm not the greatest at building custom trees, I think I did a pretty good job on these too, and I think they add a little bit of focus and break up the monotony of the whole mountain a bit, which I like quite a lot. And if we just head right back up to the top of the mountain, you'll see the little smokestack peeking out, and then the house I built. And I'm really not the best at building like buildings or houses, but I think I did a pretty good job, and I like the color contrast of the roofs. And I really just like how this house looks on the whole mountain with the little smokestack coming out of the chimney and everything. And if you remember from earlier, I can't get any stone in Structureless Superflat, so instead I tried to use some polished andesite, which I think looks pretty good and replicates it quite well. And not using stone adds like a whole bit of a challenge to the build, which I thought was pretty fun. But if we just switch over to nighttime, you'll see something pretty cool about this mountain. Is that the entire thing actually just glows, because I lit up the entire thing with hidden light sources. So at night, the whole build I think really just looks amazing as it all glows, and it's all spawn proof, which makes it really safe to be on as well. But if we just come over to my little behind the scenes area underneath the mountain with my stone farm where I got all my light gray wool and my wheat farm and everything else, you'll see the underside of the mountain, which I think is honestly one of my favorite ways to look at it, because you can really just take in a lot more of the build from underneath it, rather than just looking at a single side like from the outside. And as you may have noticed, the whole floor is dug out, or at least most of it, and that's because I needed a lot of dirt for this build, and it pretty effectively spawn-proofed the whole under area from slimes, which was quite nice. And something you may have noticed either now or at some point during all the building is these frames that I originally had for the mountain, and how I did not follow them at all. I was nowhere close to following these things, and that's because I only really built them as a general indicator for how tall I wanted it to be and where each side started. And that's all I really used them for, but I did end up going a lot higher than the frame originally planned, but this was a year-old dirt frame I made, and it was in no way going to stay the exact frame that I had planned. Also, before I close off this video, I want to look at one part of the build that I've overlooked quite a bit because I'm never really going to look at it. The back of the build. I only really made this just so I could say I finished the mountain, and so there was a nice backside for a full 360 view, even if I'm never going to be looking at this. At least I can say I did the back of my base. And to close off this episode, I just wanted to point out one weird thing I noticed in the little cabin on top of the mountain. If you go over down into the cellar and climb down, you'll notice the floor seems to kind of be collapsing. I don't know if it's from all these bees or what, but maybe some caves or cave systems will form inside this mountain down there. I don't know. That's all I really have time for today. I guess we'll just have to see what all that's about next time. And I really appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video, because I'll see you in the next episode.